All right, welcome back to Dollars and Dragons. It's Friday, as in the day of the week, but this is not Friday speaking right now. This is actually Lila. I have taken over this channel, but with a lot of consent. Because today we're going to be doing a little sort of virtual panel on Big Bad Con. We are just about a week out from Big Bad Con. We have some wonderful folks here. Of course, Friday. We also have Nala and Taylor. I'm going to let them all give their own introductions, but I'll do a little intro about me. So my name is Lila. I'm a game designer and project manager in the TTRPG space. I've been going to Big Bad Con since 2019, and I did the transition of starting off as an attendee at Big Bad Con and then eventually going there as somebody who was seeking opportunities in the industry. I'm going to hand it off to Nala.
Hi everyone, my name is Nala or Jay. My pronouns are they, them. I'm at NalaWoo on Twitter and at Nala Draws everywhere else. I'm an art director and illustrator and actual play performer, sensitivity consultant, all of that fun stuff. And this is my second Big Bad Con. I was one of the POC scholars last year, and this year I was back on the not POC scholars scholarship, but the other scholarship. So I came back. This time I was able to do a lot more. I ran a ridiculous amount of events, was on a bunch of panels, and it was fun. I'm going to pass it to Taylor.
Hey everyone, I'm Taylor. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a TTRPG project manager, game designer, and editor. At Big Bad, this was my second year of being a POC scholar. And we'll get more into what I was doing later on, but it was attending a lot of panels, attending a lot of events, and hustling, I guess. And I'll pass it over to Friday.
Hi, I'm Friday. You may or may not know who I am, but you've heard my voice perhaps if you listen to this podcast. And I am a game designer and professional GM. And this is my first time going to Big Bad Con. Oh yeah, pronouns she, her. And yeah, I just it's the only con I can really afford to go to because it's on the West Coast.
But there might be other reasons to attend Big Bad, which I'm sure we will also get into. But actually, that's a little bit of a good transition into talking a little bit about what sort of the reason that I brought these fine folks together to chat, which is basically I think we all kind of have a sense of how it's like sometimes hard to get to conventions and that there's sort of access issues with being able to attend cons. So we cannot perfectly, in any sense, recreate what happens at Big Bad Con to the extent that all of us went to panels and we took notes. We are also all in the industry, but like fairly new to the industry in some respect. And so we are basically here to talk about what happened at Big Bad Con, the actual advice that we took away, and then also demystify a little bit what it's like to be a newbie that's trying to, design games or get industry work, and the advice that we've been given and things that we've learned during each of our journeys doing that. Um, all right. I think with that, I'm just going to start talking about different panels, and I'm going to get my own little notebook out here. So hopefully, other folks will have things to say. But I'm gonna list the title of the panel, um, and we will just kind of popcorn around takeaways from that panel and have a little discussion about it. Um, so the first is a little bit of a combination of a pitching yourself panel or workshop. I think these were both workshops. One of which was held specifically for the POC scholars, and another one called Presenting You Online, which I think covered like similar things that was held for a wider audience. Um, I'm also realizing that I'm just going to do a little editorial thing to talk about what the POC scholars were because a couple of folks already mentioned that. If you're listening and you're like, I don't know what that is. So Big Bad Con, one of the things that I think is different from I want to say any other TTRPG gaming convention out there, is that the convention leadership has raised a fair amount of money from folks in the TTRPG industry. I might pull up the names of the sponsors because I think it's good to shout them out. But basically, to enable the con to pay for travel and hotel stays for folks in the industry that are basically people to know who are just getting started in their careers, so that they can actually attend the convention and meet and network with industry professionals and other folks that come there. So it's like a direct um, way to address access issues for cons. So that's what the POC scholars were. So there was a version of this workshop that was specifically for them, and then a wider version. Um, Anybody go to this and have actionable takeaways from it?
I didn't actually attend either of these workshops, which is probably a bad thing to start off saying. But just so the listeners are aware, Big Bad Con does an online version of the con where it's just panels that are streamed and then put on YouTube. If you go to YouTube and search in Big Bad Con, the channel will come up, and all of like the VODs from previous panels will come up. The Pitching You panel was done by Carlos Cisco. Shout out to Carlos. He did amazing work helping POC throughout the weekend. But a version of that panel is available online, and I know because I studied it in the lead up to the convention, so that way when people ask me who I was, I had something ready to go, and then the homework that was for the POCs built off of that. So it is available for people out there. If you're going, hey, this sounds like a cool workshop and would be helpful, you can go and find it. It's out there. Sorry, I felt the need to bring that in.
I'll put the link in the description for that. Oh yeah, I guess I'll talk. I'm sorry, since I unmuted myself. So for the pitching, I found it to be useful because it really solidified a very concise way to introduce yourself that was like really emphasizing the best parts of yourself. So I found that to be useful for that reason.
And I was one of the people running the Presenting You online workshop. We offered 2 sessions prior to the con for people of color. And then during the convention, we had a more panel-based roundtable discussion, followed by 1 hour of office hours where we walked around and helped people. Presenting You online was all about how best to present yourself in this new age of social media and how to best market yourself. My specific talks were about your visual branding and the visual side of presenting yourself, how to build a brand and what branding even means. And I think a really good takeaway from this is that people get really caught up in like how to set yourself apart and how to differentiate and how all of these things that can be incredibly stressful, especially when you see so many people like hustling. And I think the one thing I would say is that you yourself is the thing that makes you different, because no one will ever do it like you do it. And learning how to present that is sort of what we were talking about. And we hoped to give people courage and confidence to talk about themselves and to present themselves following the convention with skills and tips and stuff for like making a link tree or a card, business cards, etc.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think what I will add is just kind of like piggybacking off of what Nala said. One of the most important parts of the workshop was we just like practiced our little speech a couple times in a row, so that we could get it down and kind of know the key things that we had to hit. Another thing that jumped out at me, which was sort of feedback that was given. So in the Pitching You workshop that Carlos ran, most of the people there, it felt like, were from LA, and like some of them had like sort of screenwriting backgrounds. So there's a big focus on kind of like storytelling about yourself. And I think one of the things that I still kind of struggled with was the folks that were advising. A lot of them were basically trying to find like those weird little stories that are specific to you that will, show the skills that you have, but also give a kind of memorable anecdote that somebody would be able to like refer to you by. So I don't think this is a great example, but a couple of the folks really latched on to the fact that I'd been in the Peace Corps, because that is just a throwaway sentence, I guess, that's like fairly memorable compared to, you know, other folks that they might talk to. So I guess just practice and try to think of kind of the how you can make the information about yourself specific and tell it more like a story was sort of what I took away from that. Okay, I'm gonna give like a half a second if anybody else has anything else to say about that. Nah, all right, we're moving on. We got to give this information. Okay, so the next thing on here, I put down the resume review workshop. I know that I went to this, but I might have been the only one. I think I was. All right, I'm gonna just say like two things about it. So man, I wish I had names, but Laura and Hannah Rose, both prolific editors and women in the TTRPG space, showed up to give 15-minute resume reviews. Gosh, it was extremely helpful. I might try to just like show a before and after of my resume to talk about some of the changes and stuff that they gave. My resume was like fairly polished because I've been showing it around to a lot of folks, but one thing I'll say is that they liked my little like mission statement that I had at the top, which was like a new thing that I added because I'm doing a career transition into TTRPGs. And another thing that I did in advance of this is I'm really trying to push sort of like the leadership aspect of my resume. So I'd sort of bolded titles for each of the experiences that I had that like had just lead in the title, and then you know, sort of stuff about them. But anyways, that was very helpful. I might try to do a longer blog post or something because I think it could use some more time. But resumes are definitely something once you get to a particular type of company in the TTRPG space that you're going to need and can share around to help you get opportunities. Okay, next on here is leading TRPG projects, which was actually a panel that I moderated. But I was so focused on moderating it that I actually didn't take notes. So I'm going to hand it over to folks that were in the audience to talk about the biggest takeaways from that one. Go for it, Taylor.
I think one of the biggest takeaways, can't remember if it was in this panel or another panel that Anthony did, but I think it's the same thing, is very much this focus on, well, in games, we build our parties. So in real life, you need to build a party as well. You need to build a team. Your team needs to be reliable. And what that means is that they deliver on time to the specification. And if they can't do that, that they communicate with enough time that you can like buffer. So when you're leading TTRPGs and you're setting those timelines, whatever buffer time that you think, and this is definitely not from personal experience, this is from the panel, double it. Like, I think that was like a huge thing, is like building your team, setting your expectations, being able to learn from your mistakes was like another huge thing. And knowing how to raise your team morale were all topics that were covered. I'll let somebody else talk.
What I got out of this was I really liked the aspect of having a team that you could also build up on and support. So finding people that you worked really well with and were comfortable enough to assist and develop in their careers, I think was a major focus for me, because I love that shit. Like I love that type of thing. So that really resonated with me and stuck with me from that, besides all the stuff that Taylor said.
I have two things that are coming to mind. One of the big things I took away was this thing that I believe Spencer said, and I apologize if other people on the panel also said it, but it was basically that he gives small projects to people that he's working with for the first time. That enables him basically to, you know, see how somebody works and like go through a full cycle of working with them. And if they're good, then he will keep working with them, sort of thing, which I think might seem obvious, but definitely feels like something that I might take into a project as a way to like feel okay, you know, bringing new people on board, which I think was like a little bit of a tension in the panel, which was basically like one of the pieces of advice was like, well, how do you find people? And it's like, well, you ask your friends who, you know, did a good job, which is the truth, but also means that we sort of like perpetuate these like cycles of having little in groups and things. So I thought that that was an interesting point. Another thing that I know a few folks said, but I remember Anthony in particular saying it, was basically how he to keep morale up. And a few folks said this, like, you should be giving positive feedback as well as feedback to improve people and get the product closer to what you're looking for. But I know I've felt this in my own life. Giving positive feedback and specifically calling out a thing that somebody is doing. And Anthony specifically said, like, I do this in a public forum. Like, when somebody has done a good thing, I will like specifically call them out in a public forum and say, like, very specifically what they did that was good. And that is something that any project manager can do right now for free. And I think it is extremely meaningful. And I know that I've been on paid work teams where people did not do stuff like that. And I think it actually like led to me eventually leaving the team. So I will say that. Nala.
I was not on this panel. I did not go to this panel, but going off of that, like as an art director, I made like an art sharing channel in one of my project discords, and every time an artist finishes their piece, I post it there, and the whole team can see it, and people are pouring compliments on and celebrating the art as it's coming in, and that really feels like building a community within your team where we can all celebrate each other's hard work. And that's something that I do as an art director that I think is really fun. And also just everyone else, because you're working like by yourself on your work, you don't really get to see what everyone else is working on usually until the product comes out. So that's why I like sharing in the Discord and getting everyone just pumped and excited to be working on this project together.
Yeah, totally. I'm gonna give one more. There was just a really big focus on establishing trust with your team, especially on timelines. I think that this is one of the things that was repeated in this panel, but I've learned outside of this panel, is basically, your goal is to have is to create a safe environment for clear communication with the folks that you're working with, so that if they become sick, if something happens in their life, if they don't know what they're doing, like, whatever's going on, that they will tell you as a project lead. And yeah, I think there's skill growth that needs to be done on the freelancer side to make sure that they're like professionally communicating those things, but you play a big part as a lead, creating a space and processes and expectations where people feel safe enough to ask for those things, and it'll help you out as a project lead. Friday.
So one of the things that I have learned over my time is that as a leader, no matter if like you're doing project management, or maybe you're an art director, or maybe like you're a narrative designer, or whatever it might be, the way that you react to news, good or bad, matters. And the way that you treat people for telling you something in confidence matters. And whether or not you take something seriously really matters. So when you're dealing with your teammates on a project, it is very important to make sure that you provide enough space for yourself to actually look over stuff and spend the time that means that you care. Spend enough time to show that like you are digesting and actually like looking at what they have done, and then also providing meaningful feedback.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to move on to the next panel. We're kind of going all over the place in the TTRPG sphere. But the next panel is the state of social media in TTRPGs. Friday, I know you were at this because I dragged you to it. Any takeaways?
I would say yes. My takeaway was that Twitter is awful now. I missed Twitter a year ago, and well, most parts of Twitter, I would say. It was still kind of awful then, but it's somehow getting worse. The other thing I would say is that the major takeaway from the actual panel was that many people did what they had to do and explained some of their methods in order to make sure that they didn't get burnt out on pushing the content that they needed to for their platforms in order to grow. And I think that's so important. I think many creators, especially in video format, really push too many different platforms instead of streamlining just pushing one platform and building that as like your base platform and then growing from there and then maybe cross-posting, but spending much less time on that. in order to like reserve a lot of your mental health, because if you're worried about gaming 6 different platforms, it is very exhausting. It's exhausting doing one. So doing more than a casual repost on more than one platform is going to really drain you.
All right, I'll go through some takeaways that I got. So one was people were asked like their favorite examples of accounts and what people were posting. The names that came up were Roll20, Ginny D, Connie Chang, and this web series called The Party. Connie in particular was called out for basically being really good at doing this thing called like edutainment. I'm pretty sure it's where they cut clips of the streams that they're doing, and people who have actually seen this can probably explain it a little bit more. And they're just like really intelligently cut and get a lot of traction and also get people to go watch their stream. Nala, who's actually probably seen one of these.
Yeah, so Connie does TikToks, and I think Connie has really mastered that platform and getting engagement on that platform. He's told me completely separately that a lot of the new transplanar fans that are coming in from TikTok. But what Connie does basically is he's very energetic in front of the camera. First of all, they have like a way of speaking that immediately makes you want to keep watching the video. There's an immediate hook, and on the topic of edutainment, right? So like Connie presents information about like how to GM or how to like do this, or like things that TTRPG players and GMs might be looking for advice on. They will talk about it in the video, and then at the very end of the video show an example of that put into motion from their current campaign. So she'll talk about like, oh, here's like an evil GM thing to do, like end on a cliffhanger, immediate cut to the end of the latest episode of Chaos Protocol, where Connie ends on a cliffhanger. And not only is Connie teaching people things, but also is funneling people in to want to watch the show that he's doing. And that's sort of like, Connie makes content on TikTok, maybe because it's fun, maybe because they actually enjoy it. But what she's trying to do, I think, is trying to get people to move to that second location to watch the actual content that they make.
Hello, it's me, Taylor. I am the person that Nala is talking about. I found I've heard of Connie in the space, but I've watched his TikToks, and I'm now listening to Chaos Protocol specifically because of it. I listened to it on the way to Big Bad Con, and then ran into Connie and them specifically about it, which I thought was very nice and cool. Also, getting back to the panel, I do just want to quickly throw out my main takeaways, which was the discussions about volatility in social media. So first of all, your social media image doesn't need to be all of you all the time. And I think that is something very important for people to remember, keeping those boundaries. Create who and how you are seen. Don't be afraid to use the block button. Like, make it a good space for you. Let the trash take themselves out. Talk about the things that you believe in. And if they're going to unfollow you, let them unfollow you. If they're not going to follow you, remember that block button you just talked about. Use it. Different platforms help you reach your people to different levels, which again, I thought was very good. We could do a breakdown, but we're kind of pressed for time here. And also, I think the most important thing is that platforms that require consistency, that consistency isn't realistic for disabled individuals, which is also an important thing to remember when you're looking as a consumer at your favorite people in the TTRPG industry. Like, consistency just isn't realistic for a lot of your favorite disabled creators.
Awesome. I'll say one other thing that I see highlighted here that I thought was funny. I have a note that says, wait until Serena Marie says where they will be as to what platform to join for social media, because of course there's a lot of volatility with where folks are going after Twitter. All right, I have on here next the freelancing at Ghostfire panel.
I really enjoyed this because I, as a person who has not been published by a big publisher, I found it to be really illuminating as far as like their process. I'm always really fascinated because there are some common threads with how projects are led, and then there are some intricacies that are different depending on who's leading the project and what company and publisher and stuff like that. Some are completely siloed. With Ghostfire, I guess they are just opening up to have more collaboration and more discussion amongst others about like what is being said and what is being made, and like connecting things in such a way that one author will read what is made by another person as they're connecting their adventure to their adventure, and so on and so forth. And those are all things that honestly I thought publishers did, but apparently it's a new thing. And I think it's one of those things that, if I was to say, it has come up a lot when I've talked to freelancers about a big criticism of some publishers has been that they often have people work in silos. And then the work comes out and it feels disjointed. So that's good. I got a lot of other good takeaways from it, but they were mostly like personal and mostly about like how to present yourself and like also how to communicate with people a little bit better. But yeah.
Well, I'm just going through my notes really quickly. I think one of the things that was interesting, to basically, I think Ethan said this, that one of the things about freelancing that is interesting is basically you're given boundaries or like constraints. The most, sort of apparent one being a word count, but you also might be given kind of boundaries around what story you're trying to tell. Like you might get an outline for a story, and treating that as a really interesting way to breed creativity, because limitations breed creativity. So I thought that that was a good way of looking at freelancing assignments. I think that Friday, this is sort of what you're saying, is that there was a conversation, but not a real solution, about how there's not a lot of incentives in the timelines for collaboration, and I think collaboration in this industry is something that like the industry hasn't fully figured out yet. Yeah, and a big one, which I think also came up in the leading TRPG panels, is to ask for feedback, specifically from the freelancer point of view, how it is okay and actually quite proactive to be asking for feedback on your assignments, because as a freelancer, it's kind of a mixed bag as to whether, if you're working at a company full time, like usually you will be in a system and you'll be getting feedback pretty regularly, even if it's just like a performance review. As a freelancer, you might not be getting that. So to the extent that you can be proactive about asking for feedback from the folks that you're working with, is a really good sign to them that you're looking to improve, and is also just helpful for you because you will improve.
On that note about sort of collaboration, I know what my answer is for that. But ultimately, if we want to circle back briefly to sort of leading tabletop projects and what we talked about, takeaways from that, I know how we've solved that, and I would say that Lila is aware of this process because Lila was on the team, and it really just came down to more time from the leads. And if you can get more people on the team so that you have enough time to do that, that's what's going to make a better product. Because a lot of the time, like, it is very difficult, because if someone comes to you with an idea that isn't completely supported by your master plan, then you are essentially just up a creek. Like you don't know how to bring yourself to them to meet them in the middle. But if you already buffer that time in there, as we talked about previously, then more collaboration is possible. But some of these publishers have like these really tight timelines. They're doing like 3 Kickstarters a year, so it's like they don't have time, right? So it's like,
yeah. I'm gonna move us along. So the next one that I have on here is pitching your ideas.
Pitching your ideas was a really good panel, I think, because it basically showed you how to make a pitch deck. Literally like a numbered, like starting from what should you include, the what, where, when, why, how, who, budget, distribution, market analysis, business plan, talking about making it pretty, the exact sections that you'll need, like talking about it from not only like a TTRPG perspective, but a board game perspective and an actual play perspective and a personal perspective as well. Kind of demystifying that, discussing the presentation as well, like controlling the flow, like making sure you guide people through the pitch deck and not just doing that high school thing where you read like from your cards or you read directly from the slide. There was like a slideshow that was done as well. I don't think there's access to that, but like as a post thing. But I was frantically scribbling, and it's just too much to cover now. But it was one of those things that it was like a clear, actionable feedback, like walking you step by step through that process.
I'm not certain if this was if they open it up. I think it was Michelle leading this one, and I'm not sure if they opened up like the pitch deck samples that they had. But honestly, one of the best things that happened to me was having that opportunity to ask someone directly, "Hey, how do you build your pitch decks?" And I asked someone who had experience in it. So getting just a template or something about like, "Hey, this is what I'm looking for from a publisher," or any sort of sample that you can get. I'll see if I can get somebody's by the time I post this and just put it in the description, or I'll just post mine. So that's helpful for people.
Hi, this is Nala. That was my panel. I did that one. It was my first solo lecture that I've ever given at a convention ever, and I was kind of nervous. But basically, the main takeaways from this lecture that I gave, the point of it, first of all, was to talk to both clients and artists about the business side of illustration, about best practices. It was me yelling that you should pay everybody more money. I talked about copyright. I talked about contract language and that sort of thing. All my slides were memes. I'm very proud of the memes. I will probably be posting the memes in a thread later because hashtag content, am I right? But anyway, some of the main takeaways, I think, of my lecture are simply that art is a luxury. And if you want to have good art in your stuff, it's going to cost money. But I also was very clear in saying that I don't think you need to have stellar art in your products to have them sell. I think good graphic design will get you very far. And also that I talked a lot about copyright because that's something that people don't really know a lot about. I learned all that I learned from my professors at art school, and when I got into this space, being lowballed by so many clients who didn't understand that full copyright transfers cost a lot more money, them not understanding what that really means. It's kind of like when the tiny project asks you to sign an NDA. It's kind of like, what are you doing? Like, like you don't need this. And so it was a lot of me just dumping as much information on people as I could in an hour. And overall, it was a really good experience. And I'm hoping to do the same lecture in an online format that can be recorded and saved so that people can reference it later, is my hope.
Awesome. All right, moving next. The best title in here, possibly. All My Friends Are Hot! Romance and TTRPGs.
I was also on that panel. This was about portraying romance in games and how to play out romance at the table. We talked a lot about, I think, like the main takeaway from this is that you have to fucking communicate. Like whether it's a home game, whether it is a streamed game for performance, because we all know that performing in an actual play is very different from just doing a home game. Once there's an audience involved, there has to be a lot more thought that goes into everything. The main takeaway is communicate. And we talked a lot about how to deal with bleed, how to navigate portraying different kinds of intimacy and what that really means, how to even breach the subject if you've never done it before, how to start doing it, and just talking about, like I think we spent a lot of time talking about bleed and that sort of thing, and we got some really good audience questions and discussions about stuff like I'm playing in a game with my husband and I want to romance someone else's character, but I'm playing the game with my partner, how to navigate those feelings, stuff like that. It was a very good panel, and again, I would love to do this, do it again. It's a good one and very important.
All right. Costuming is storytelling.
It's also welcome to the Nala show. All of the stuff that I went to is at the bottom of this list. Costuming and storytelling was one of the last panels ever at the convention. It was the 5 to 6 p.m. on Sunday slot, so it was very late. This was Kai's panel, Estella Vimladris on Twitter. Kai is a union costumer and is very good at what they do. And this was Kai's solo lecture about costuming as storytelling. And my main takeaway from watching this panel, given that this is the only panel that I went to and wasn't on or running, I was very excited to just sit in the audience for this one. But Kai's main thing is that what your character wears in an AP, or if you're drawing characters or if you're designing characters to have someone else draw, what your character wears says a lot about who they are. What they wear visually can tell a story. If they are more athletic, are their clothes easy to move in? What fabrics are they using? What colors are they wearing? What accessories do they have? Like, all of these things mean something. And Kai talked a lot about costuming history as well as best practices, appropriation versus appreciation, like all of these really important things when it comes to costuming yourself for an AP, costuming, creating clothing for your characters to wear, as well as a writer or as anyone else who deals with creating characters for any reason. Just to think about that, because people don't tend to put a lot of thought into what their characters are wearing. But in reality, there is a whole world to be unlocked if you start thinking about the clothes that you're putting on your character's back.
Okay, so now I'm going to transition this conversation, and hopefully maybe we can have like a time code here, because I think this is going to be a sort of different part of the convo, where I just want us to talk about what it's like and give advice and do a little bit of like behind the scenes of how we all attend conventions as industry professionals. Because one of the things for me is that attending as an industry professional was a lot different than when I spent 2019 attending a bunch of cons just to go play games and yeah, mostly just play games. I mean, I might have sat in a panel here or there. Cool. We'll kick it off with Nala.
Yeah, so I think I joined the space in around 2019. I was not able to go to Big Bad in 2019, but that's about when I joined the space. And so I've never gone to a TTRPG convention not for work. And so I've never gone to just play games. I've never had, I call that even a luxury. Like, imagine going to one of these for fun. That sounds like fun. I wish I could show up to PAX Unplugged and just go play games. That sounds fun. But anyway, all jokes aside, I think networking is something that is incredibly scary, but also something that at the same time, simultaneously, isn't as scary as one would think. I also want to acknowledge on this podcast that I am very extroverted, and I have never had an issue with talking to new people and that sort of thing. So I think that's the perspective that I'm coming from, is that networking and talking to people isn't something that gives me anxiety or that sort of thing. But my best tips are essentially bring business cards. People still do business cards. Make sure your business cards are the standard business card size, because when people are putting their business cards, like, they hand you theirs and then you take yours or whatever, they stick it back in their business card holder. If it's not the standard shape, it doesn't fit. People don't know what to do with those, and those are more likely to just get thrown out or people get frustrated with them. Also, this goes back to the whole like branding thing, right? Like, having something that makes you memorable. People have already started reaching out to me post-con. And for example, I met someone who was wearing a frog hat all weekend. Her name was Abby. And when she introduced herself in the email, she was like, "Hi, it's Abby. Great talking to you," blah, 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 all the stuff that you say in an email. And she's like, "I was the one wearing the frog hat." I was like, "Great." I instantly knew who that was. So like, having something that makes you really memorable, whether it's a story like we were talking about earlier, or a piece of clothing that you wore, something to make people remember you, especially if you're new in this space. That's a great way to make sure that people remember who you are. I also it's good just to talk to everyone because you never know who you're talking to, especially when you don't know anyone. Like this has never happened to me, but I've heard of it happening to other people where people like if you're shit talking people openly or whatever and someone overhears it, that'll get like this space isn't as big as you think it is. Like people know people and if you're at an industry event shit talking someone else, more than likely that person is going to hear about it at some point. So just be a nice person. I feel like that's easier said than done sometimes, but like just be pleasant and when you talk to people, introduce yourself and see if you can find commonalities. Talk about the games you like, like every conversation doesn't have to feel transactional if you make a point to not make it transactional. Like you shouldn't be going into conversations being like, what can I get from you and what can you give me, right? Like talk about the games you like, because we're all here because we all like games, right? I mean, I don't think you'd be working in this industry if you hated TTRPGs. Taylor.
To jump off of that point and to answer the question at the same time, if you're going to Big Bad Con to hustle and it's your first time, my advice is don't. When you go in, don't go to hustle. So I'm gonna give a little bit of sad character backstory, which is gonna be relevant, I promise. I am a mum living in the UK who has been completely disconnected from any sort of peers, and I mean POC peers, I mean TTRPG peers, I mean even other parents. Going to Big Bad Con the first year that I went, it was the first time I had ever traveled by myself. It was my first ever convention. I considered myself a bit of a baby in the space. I'd only been doing it like professionally for about, I think, 9 months at that point. And when I went into Big Bad Con 2022, I had no action plan. I had my little business cards that my mentor had told me to make, and that was it. And I had a look at the POC scholars list because I was very, very fortunate that I got to be a POC scholar. And I decided to make my goal that I would try to talk to as many of those people as possible. And I knew I wasn't going to get on with everyone. And I think I did have a pleasant conversation with everyone that I spoke to. That's not to say I didn't get on with them. But you can't be liked by everyone. And that's okay. Because the point of this convention is community. And going and talking to all of those scholars, I was suddenly given peers, and those peers became colleagues. So when I say don't go to hustle, do not go to hustle. Go to find people, go to make friends, because I can list off from last year and now this year where I did the exact same thing. In fact, I even got people to sign my program, so that way it was like a nice personal thing. Nala, you drew a picture of yourself in it, and that was like such a core memory for me. Yeah,
I was a scholar, but they didn't make me a scholar soon enough, so I didn't make it into the program, which was kind of sad because everybody else got a little picture in there, but I didn't get my picture in there. So when everyone was signing their pictures, I was like, I'm gonna draw a little stick figure of myself in the margin, and then I signed my stick figure.
Yeah, because Willie wasn't in it and Ethan wasn't in it.
There was a couple
2022.
People.
There was a couple of people. But the point is, and I'm glad that you're kind of butting in because this should be a conversation. This is hey, don't go to hustle. Find your peers. Find people who are at the same point as you. Befriend them. Work with them on your personal projects. And then when you have the opportunity, when you come back for the second year and somebody's like, hey, who do you think would be a good fit? Because you're talking with people on the level, you can then say, hey, I know a great person and we've worked together for this long. And this is something amazing that they've done. And this is why I like what they've done. Because, I mean, I did it for Lila and it's not to brag, but it's like a point of like, hey, we should be bringing everyone up with you. And it gives you like, I guess like a cohort, if you want to think about it in school terms, of people who should all be rising together and on that same trajectory together. So don't come to hustle. Do bring your business cards though. And then when you come back for the second year, that's when you can run around and you can have your meetings and you can do the business side. But for that very first year, don't come into it looking for work. Come into it looking for friends and attend the panels, learn from the experts, start that conversation like with people after the fact. But people will be able to tell, and this makes me really sad because I don't like saying it because it feels mean, but people will be able to tell if you're coming in looking for a transaction. People will be able to come and tell when you are trying to social climb. So don't bother. Like, don't waste your time. Like, don't waste other people's time. But look for friends, look for deep and meaningful connection. And I think that is the essence of like the POC and industry aspect of the convention.
I think something that we haven't really noted is that Big Bad Con is a relatively small convention. It doubled in size this year from last year. We hit capacity at 1,000 people. Last year, I'm pretty sure it was about 500. I think definitely under 700 people attended last year. And so it is very, very small compared to any other convention people go to, like Gen Con, PAX Unplugged, PAX East, whatever, PAX West. It's smaller than all of those conventions. So, like, this year when I was coming to Big Bad Con, I saw lots of people who I saw for the first time last year at Big Bad Con, and seeing them again, it felt like seeing an old friend, even though I'd never really spoken to anyone. Like, when I saw you again, Taylor, I was like, it's Taylor! I remember you from last year. When I saw Ethan, I was like, it's Ethan! I remember him from last year. Like, it's kind of like a reuniting of like people you went to high school with, except it was just one weekend last year, right?
Yeah, I think somebody called it summer camp at one point.
It's like a work retreat is what Big Bad Con feels like. It's a work retreat.
You know what? You are so right. It is a work retreat. Like, Friday,
it's not a
please
convention,
jump in, because I think we're in like a conversation part now where like we're just gonna keep talking otherwise.
Taylor, you gotta let Friday.
All right. So anyway, white woman speaking. So, yeah. So this was my first Big Bad Con. I liked it for all of the same reasons that were stated, but from a different perspective. In that I've worked in the space for 2.5, 3 years. I've only been to industry cons as an industry person because I was very intentional about joining the professional space. And one of the things that I had learned from Anthony, actually, I had the opportunity to speak with Anthony privately, like right before he left on Sunday. And he spoke to me about kind of my situation, which actually I believed, and I had this conversation with him, that our sort of careers in TTRPG are very similar. And we have very similar backgrounds prior to TTRPG, right? Both coming from, our previous work. And what he really impressed on to me was really that simply because I have got myself into a place where I have seen success and people look at me as successful, I am not offered opportunities. And part of that is like Big Bad Con is not for me to receive opportunities. And I'm totally okay with that. I go there for meeting other people, connecting with other people that I really love to work with and people that I would like to work with. And seeing a lot of people, like, for instance, like, I don't know, I just saw, like, the Dungeon Dudes, and I went up to them, and I was like, hey, I really liked your book, Drakkenheim, and everybody in my space really loves Drakkenheim, and, like, these are all the things I love about it. And then, like, Monty looked at me and is like, are you Friday the Pro GM? And I was just like, that's weird that you know who I am, but, because I've watched you for, like, 4 years now on YouTube. But, like, it was a bunch of little interactions like that were really meaningful. And then I had the opportunity to speak to someone who worked on all of my favorite TTRPG books, all of them, and just a total killer in the space. And I had this wonderful opportunity to sit down and just tell her about my stupid game, which she was giving me the body language that she really loved, which was good. And she expressed that to me verbally. But yeah, it was just really nice to just connect with people in that way. Go ahead, Taylor.
I just want to say that is actually one of the most important elements of the con, like having access to people. And when I say fangirling, I don't mean like the intense fandom stuff. What I mean is going up to people and being like, hey, I really liked your stuff. This is something that stood out to me. This is something that I connected with. Because you'll be surprised how little people hear that. And in fact, like, for example, when I got the scholars to sign my program, for a lot of people, it was the first time they'd ever been asked to sign anything. So it's so important to go up to people and say, but not in a creepy way, not where you're overstepping. Like, you keep the distance between you. You like speak enthusiastically. Like, I mean, I'm sure everyone here has seen me fangirl over somebody at some point, just because I can't help myself. Working in TTRPGs is cool. Like, everybody does some. Like, no, I was like obsessed with your outfits like every single day. I think every single day I was like trying to find you and compliment you, because like even something small like, hey, I like what you're wearing, I like the effort that you've put into this, I recognize you from this. It is so incredibly important that you keep that positive energy and you tell people. And then sometimes, like Friday has said, they know who you are too, which is wild. It's absolutely a wonderful feeling. But yes, if you are at Big Bad Con, do not be afraid to go up to the creators that you admire and say, hey, you've done a cool thing. I've noticed this cool thing and it's important to me because of X, Y, or Z. That's okay. But don't trauma dump either. Like, again, make sure you understand those boundaries, and I'll let Friday speak again.
I suppose to emphasize in a slightly different perspective, it can be very easy for you to kind of slip into thinking like, this is my only chance to talk to this person, and I have to shoot my shot right this very second. You really don't. You really don't. So
Yep.
you could just like start a conversation with someone and then like go into like that. I mean, like I did pitch a couple of people post panel because their panel was about freelancing and they're a project manager, and I said, hey, are you in a space where you can accept my 60-second pitch about me? And they're like, hey, here's my email. And I said, okay. And then that was pretty much it. And then we moved on. So I think it's important to mind people's space, especially if like you're going to be in a place where like you are just expecting some sort of transaction, as has been mentioned earlier. Lila, go ahead.
Okay, this is all really great, and I think we're giving a lot of good information about kind of interacting in the space during the con. What I want to do or challenge us to do right now is talk a little bit about what, if anything, folks are doing before the con. Then we can maybe come back and talk a little bit more if there's anything more to say about what you did at the con in sort of like a professional capacity, and then we can talk about like post-con stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and just start with some like before con stuff, and then I'll pass it over to other folks to talk. So one of the things that was brought up was business cards. Yeah, 100%. Business cards seem to be a thing. It For the second year in a row, I've kind of had this feeling of like, man, our email telling folks to come to the meet and greet with business cards is going out real late for folks that might not know that this is a thing. So business cards are a thing. Make business cards. I know that I just use a software program. I think some folks have used Canva. One of the cool things I saw on business cards was that they will leave a little space for people to take notes. So I think that's a cool aspect of a business card. I don't know if this is a good or bad thing, but potentially having your face on the business card might be helpful because it gets hard to like figure out who handed you the card sometimes. I have more pre-con stuff, but I want to pass it on to Friday to talk about some things, and we can just go around.
One thing I'll say about business card really briefly, some people are not comfortable with their face on it because of trans reasons or for whatever reasons. I know personally, like that's me, and but it is really helpful to know what you look like. So even if you can get an artist to do what you draw, like do what you look like in a way that's similar enough to how you look for it to remind someone, that's helpful for stirring the memory of when I go through these business cards like post-con and I'm like, hey, I got to email these 15 people, and that you're doing that. The other thing I would say is that beware of using business cards as the entire bonding experience and or the way to connect with people. Because if you go up to someone and then you're just waiting for your moment to hand them the business card and not during a natural like transactional way or a natural conversational way in which you are like asking or you have been asked, then that can be awkward because like pushing someone a business card without there being a reason to that they have like wanted to express their desire to receive it can be awkward.
I'm going to say a quick thing. I think another thing that's really important and kind of was brought up in the sort of pitching yourself workshop is having a clear idea of what you're going to the con for, what you're trying to get out of the con. So specifically, if you're looking for opportunities in TTRPGs, like being kind of specific about those opportunities. Are you trying to go there to be an editor? Are you trying to do, adventure design? Thinking that about that a little bit more, that gets into the pitching yourself stuff. I think also for new creators, the thing I want to say is that it can be okay to kind of go to the con looking to connect with people for mentorship, which I think might be more realistic if you haven't published a lot is to try to be out there to see if you can find somebody who might be able to jump on an informational interview or possibly have a longer mentorship connection with you. So I think that's always something that you should kind of have in the back of your mind as a thing you could ask for, as opposed to like only being there to try to get freelancing opportunities, for example.
I will
Okay,
say just about mentorship on that. I suppose like next year, that's probably going to be ending up being me, is like offering these mentorship things. I think it's difficult to find the correct mentor for you, and it should be that way. So just be very careful and what's the word I'm looking for? Specific about what you were looking for when you do talk to someone, and make sure that it's a conversation that both are okay with when you start the conversation. Like, hey, I want to talk to you about mentorship. And even if you're not going to mentor me, I wanted to talk to you about your perspective about what you think would be good for me based on this, this, and this.
Yeah, I was saying I don't think I have anything to specifically add, because my main pre-con thing is just business cards, and I am going to make probably a TikTok just about some of the more unique business cards I received, because those are the things that you remember. Again, like I've said this a couple times already, like give people a reason to remember you, or give them something to remember you by, and having a really unique thing, a shtick, a bit, if you will, right? You pick a bit and commit to it, right? And so I'm gonna probably do a TikTok or something just talking about some of these really unique ideas. If you're a game designer, some people made their business cards a little mini game. Some people, like me as an artist, I've made my business cards a collectible item. So every time I go to a new con, I have new art designs on my cards, and I let people do like a blind pick. I fan them out, and people can choose one. Or they can just choose a design they like, and every year I come out with new designs, and so that even though I've given my card to people already, they come back and being like, I want another one, and that keeps my name and sort of my brand sort of at the forefront of people's minds, because I've turned my cards into a little sort of collectible game.
I'm gonna just say a quick thing, and then I'll hand it off to Taylor. So one of the actual things that I made that was not a business card was essentially an advertisement for Jukebox, but I was
Yes.
definitely inspired by, I was definitely inspired by the business cards that had mini games on them. So I was like, I'm not just gonna give like a throwaway advert. I'm gonna make a little mini game for my game so that this is actually like a useful and potentially fun document to interact with. So again, that's a little bit farther down the line, but if you're working on a game, you might want to think about bringing something related to that game.
I do just want to say for all of the listeners out there, some people will ask you to play the business card trading game, and that is okay. That is perfectly fine to like get round a table and everyone swaps information, and maybe you'll use it and maybe you don't. But it like, hey, there's not gonna be any judgment. You just have to make sure it's I don't want to say common sense, because that feels a little bit inappropriate, but there is a time and a place, and people will tell, like, will say out loud, okay, we'd like to play the business card trading game, and everyone will swap their cards. And that is a good time to do that. And you can initiate it if you think the vibe is right, and if you don't, you can always ask somebody, hey, do you want one of my business cards? Like, that is okay too. And also, just because my business cards are similar to Nala, but nowhere near as like cool and professional. I have 3 color options, and they're collectibles. And in fact, I had a shtick this year where I brought some of my cards from last year, and I signed them as limited first editions for some of my friends and gave them out because I thought it was funny.
I love that for you.
It got a laugh at the time, so I would consider that a success. But yeah, it's okay to play the business card trading game. Like, you get the thumbs up from the group. please do it, because you never know what opportunities will arise from that. Don't not do it because you think that you're going to get judged for it, because if you're going to get judged in this industry, it's going to be for something way worse than giving a business card when everyone else is giving a business card.
I will say one thing. I brought 100 cards to this year's Big Bad, and that was almost not enough. But also, I was giving them out a lot, and because my cards are collectible, I was giving them to people who already have them. I would say about 100 to 150 cards is about decent for a convention. If you are going to networking events, if you are trying to network, I think that's a really solid number, because some people don't know how many to bring. And the worst thing is running out, right? So I would say 100, really safe number if you are attending a convention and you are intending on networking. If you don't really have much credits in space, or you're just starting out and you don't really have a portfolio yet, I don't think making 100 cards might be the best for you specifically. I'm speaking more to just in general. If you want to know how many I'm bringing, I would say 100 to 150 is a safe number.
It's really funny. I'm actually on the opposite end of that spectrum, where I made new cards this year because I added project manager to my title. I brought like 50. I still have like 40 left over because I was very selective about who I gave business cards to.
That's fair.
I think Whitney was somebody who brought this up on the panel about seeking opportunities in TTRPGs. Don't give a business card unless there's like something actionable that you want to follow up and contact people with. So actually, I kept mine very reserved and only gave them out, not just because Whitney had said it, although it was very good advice, but just in a, like, people can find me on social media. That's very easy to kind of give somebody your handle, but to give somebody like direct access to you, like your email address, you can be selective with it. Like, it's okay to be anywhere on the spectrum between myself and Nala. Like, I think one thing that we've said and we will continue to say is, like, just because it worked for us doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody. Everybody's con experience, even if we're all doing very similar things, is going to be very, very different, just based on like personality type, what you do in the industry, where you choose to go, who you end up talking to, and that's okay.
I also wanted to say that I think if you can get something like a portfolio up, and again, the like pitching yourself and preparing workshops will, there's content out there online. I think I've written a little bit. It doesn't take like a webmaster degree. That is not a thing. What am I trying to say? There are quick sites like, Taylor, you have a card, right? Like, that's the name of the website that you use, and like people use
Card.
Linktree.
Yeah, I use card.co.
Yeah. So setting up a card.co, I think, is pretty easy. You can make a, worst comes to worst, you can make a Google Drive folder that has like free, copies of your writing samples. There's like quick ways to get up and running. And I think if it's something you're serious about, even if you're looking for mentors, like, that is almost try to get that as soon as possible if you're looking to do work in the space. So I want to talk a little bit about being at the actual con. One random thing that I want to bring up, because I think I've sort of screwed up on this 2 years in a row, is that, man, I still go to cons and I like sign up for games. I signed up for a bunch of panels, and I'm curious what everybody else's opinions are, but I felt like I did not leave myself enough time to just hang out in the atrium, which is where it felt like there was a lot of really cool people that were kind of having just sort of unplanned, kind of fun little interactions and meeting each other. Because when you're at an hour-long panel, that's very cool and you might be learning a lot of stuff, but you're not actually meeting people, necessarily. So that's something that I struggle with. I definitely get the sense that folks who are at the con for industry purposes, like, are leaving time on their schedules to just like hang out and meet folks. Yeah, Nala's showing their schedule.
My very busy schedule.
Yeah, but I really like, there was a werewolf game that although I was at Nala's really cool Learn to Play Mahjong event. But yeah, I'm curious what folks think, or if they have other tips for during the con.
Don't do what I did. I signed up to run, let's see, GM 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 7 events that I had the GM title, which basically just means you're on the panel or you're running it
Oh
or
my
something. I had
God.
7 of those, and then I was on a couple more panels. I'm pretty sure I had maybe like 10 events maybe that I was doing, either running or was a part of. It's a ridiculous number. Don't do what I did because, like Lila just said, I did not have time to just hang out. I was very busy all con. When I wasn't actively in an event running something, I was either prepping for an event or I was changing my outfit because I brought 9 outfits to this convention. Or I was like trying to just like eat dinner in my room, like by myself, something, whatever. Like I was so busy the whole weekend. I really wish I had left more time to just hang out because some of my most meaningful interactions that I had with people were just random one-off conversations. Like I had a random hour or like 40 minutes somewhere. I sat down and practiced ASL with 2 people because I'm learning ASL right now. So I just sat down and practiced with 2 people, and it was nice to just sit and rest my voice, but also to get some practice in. And just like the random things, like that's how you make friends, that's how you meet people. And there's so many people just wandering around and who will just like pick up a random game and just start playing with you, and it's a lot of fun.
I took the opportunity to interact with some people in the small press area, the sale area, whatever. And I stopped by only a couple of times, but when I did, I managed to find something that I was interested in buying, first of all. But then also,
Yay.
I got to talk to them about their game, and then having the creator of the game have that conversation with me and explain how the games work was like so incredibly cool, and then also a lot of fun. And I think that especially those of us who like collect so many TTRPGs, if you're gonna go to Big Bad Con and you have access to the creator right there, it's great to talk to them. So like, and that's a good way to spend 15 to 20 minutes. And then you're like, hey, now I have this experience that I'm taking with this book that I just bought for 20 to 40 bucks or whatever. And I'm going to remember that forever. And now it's on my shelf. And whenever I pick this up, I'll think about that time that I talked to the creator. And I think that's a really special thing about this con.
Yeah, I'll piggyback onto that. So one of the things I have really hard time with because I don't want to stuff schedule, but I absolutely love it, is I look for play tests in like the games that are being run, and I really enjoy going to play tests, and that usually means that you're going to be meeting the person that is running the game, and I think it's a good way to play a fun game, and then also you're probably going to meet a designer. So I definitely encourage that if you're like very new for sure. But yeah, it's one of the things I like.
Having gone for 2 years in a row now, I've seen both sides of it. So in the first year, I signed up to a bunch of panels because I wanted to learn things, and they're great conversation starters after the panel. And then that first year, I left loads of free time. I ended up going off site a lot actually to just hang and eat with friends, like outdoors, where it's safe to do so. And then this year I had lots of panels. I didn't do games, but I had a lot of like work meetings that were kind of scheduled, like opportunities where, oh, I'm seeing somebody face to face. Let's get something on the books so that way like we know that we're both free. And this year I do kind of regret that I didn't make more time for people. A lot of times like not Friday as in the panelist today, Friday as in the day of the week. I said it in like a name inflection and not in a day inflection. But on Friday, I was running between panels and meetings in my heels across the hotel, and people would like try and talk to me, and I'd be like, please find me Saturday afternoon when I don't have anything on my schedule. And Saturday afternoon rolled around and they had things on their schedule, and I missed talking to so many people. I'm all the way on the other side of the pond, and part of the thing that I really love about this convention is actually getting to physically hug my friends. I get to do it one time a year. It's that Big Bad Con, and I love it. And I wish I'd spent more time hanging out with people like I had in the first year. But also, I think if you do end up being busy, if it's your second year, if you're going back and you do end up busy in that second year, there is nothing wrong with that because, like, fingers crossed, fate providing, there will be the third year where you don't have to worry about business because you'll be in the middle of projects. Because most TTRPG projects don't happen in the span of the year; they happen over the course of a couple of years. So you can kind of relax again. But it's like I said, when you go in, don't go in trying to hustle. Go in to make friends. Second year, yeah, you can do the meetings and you can have that little bit of regret, but you've got those connections and you can reach out to people in between con times. You don't just have to be friends while you're at the con. And then the third year, you can go and relax again. Maybe this is just for me and not for anyone else, but this was my personal experience.
I will just say, if you've got a game and you want to playtest it, I absolutely recommend you do that at Big Bad Con. It is so cool to playtest your game in person with people. And I got to meet some people that backed my Kickstarter that actually signed up for my playtest, and that was super cool. And I was like, thank you for giving me money, and also welcome to play with me tonight. And then I also had like an RPG bot guy join my game who I've been on the podcast with twice, and I was just like, oh, I know you. And then everybody else walked in and it's like, oh, does everybody know each other? Or is no, just me and this guy? Just that's it.
Awesome. We are coming close to time, and I want to get these last two little bits in. So I'm going to talk a little bit about post-con. So you've met a bunch of people. You've probably collected some business cards. What I know, and I'm happy for other people to share stuff, is that I do think you should absolutely be sending follow-up emails to people who, might have, something for you or you just had a good conversation with. I am in the midst of doing that right now. I feel like I'm sending these out a little bit late. Maybe don't plan a San Francisco vacation right after Big Bad Con. I think, in the follow-up email, if there was work on the table, just reiterating sort of who you are, what you're looking for, linking out to a portfolio, and saying that you would like to continue the conversation is good. I also think it's great. Like, I'm going to be doing this with pretty much everybody I got a business card from, just like saying, hey, it was great to see you, even if, kind of going back to that, not everything needs to be a transactional experience for work. I love playing games, and so most of the people I met, I would love to be friends with in some capacity. Hopefully I'll be organizing more projects and stuff in the future. So I'm pretty sure everybody from AP folks to art folks, like, I'll have some reason to chat with at some point.
I am of the opinion that you're not too late. I haven't started doing my reply emails yet, and that's because I always tend to wait a week. And the reason I wait a week is that if you start emailing people like immediately after, people are still traveling, people are still like recuperating, like I've started getting emails from people, and it's not annoying me at all, like not at all. But for me, I'm like I've been told by coworkers and just from career advisors in the past, like you should wait about a week after these events just to give people time to get home, time to get back in the swing of work, that sort of thing. So I don't think you're being late, and in fact I haven't started. And I have something to say about like how to like write these emails, but Taylor, if you want to talk about something related to this.
Yeah, I just want to say that I am actually in agreement with you in that you will see some people be like, send follow-up emails, send them quickly.
Like immediately.
Immediately. These people are used to working in a fast-paced environment, and while I'm not saying TTRPGs is a slow-paced environment by any means, I do think that we as an industry do try and prioritize like mental and physical health as much as possible. Like, don't put pressure on yourself to send these out quickly. I love getting these emails and Twitter messages and Discord messages saying I loved seeing you, and or follow up, and that's great. But please don't stress yourself out trying to follow up any convention very quickly. I have been sat on the sofa with my 2-year-old watching TV for most of the week. And that's not because I don't want to work. I do want to work, but also rest is important because when your body is stressed for a long period of time, and I will say that cons are stressful, whether it's from like social anxiety, just from constantly doing stuff for like 4-5 days straight, like your body needs to rest, and that is a-okay. Like, sit on the sofa, watch the TV, read the book, do what you need to do to recuperate, because ultimately, I mean, yes, we'll be traveling the world, technically going to different conventions, doing different things, but we're all still connected by the internet, which is as hopeful as it is dystopian, and we're not actually going anywhere. Like, don't wait like too long, but also like please don't feel that intense pressure that can sometimes come about where you start receiving follow-ups from people who have the emotional and mental capability to do so. That's okay too. And I'll throw it back to Noah.
So I'm the villain here. I sent my emails on Monday morning because I was waiting for my plane and I had nothing to do. But all of my emails were follow-ups. Well, I guess I did send a couple of emails about like getting work myself, but most of my emails were about sending opportunities to other people, and I included in them like, hey, you have until this date to actually submit, and please don't feel as though you need to submit prior to, because I think it's important as a project lead to provide people more time if they need it, instead of just like going with the first person that submits. And I'm very clear about timelines and everything like that. Like, this is when we're doing the work. This is when we'll follow up. Right now, I'm just picking. This is when you'll get an email about whether or not you're accepted after you submit after this date. And all of that stuff, that information that people need in order to, it helps them run their freelance career. I try to provide, but I do understand that I'm the villain because that's how I conduct business.
Please don't call yourself a villain.
Yeah, you're not a villain. I think people, I'm going to demystify emails for a quick second. Follow-up emails are super easy. I use the same base email for everyone, and then I individualize them per person. So like the base email of what I'm going to be writing, I think over this weekend, because like I said, I try to wait about a week. Subject line, Big Bad Con 2023 follow-up, or Big Bad Con follow-up email, right? Like simple, sweet, easy subject line. Dear person that you are talking to, or hey person, or something, some nice, pleasant introduction. I hope you had safe travels home. Something about that, or like, it was so great talking to you. I had a great time talking about specific thing that you talked about. I wanted to follow up about specific thing that maybe you're following up on, whether it be mentorship, whether it be, hey, you said maybe you'd connect me for publishing my game, or oh, you said that you had connections to some really great artists for my project. I would love to get those names from you. Something. Like the main chunk of your email should be like specifically what you're following up on, even if it's just I had a great time talking to you and I would love to keep talking to you, or I'd love to pick your brain sometime about XYZ, or I loved your panel about this. I thought this one thing that you said was really smart and I'd love to talk more about it if you have the time. Close it off with I'm really looking forward to hearing from you. Signed, your name. Easy peasy, done. And make like a base of that, copy paste it for every single person, and customize it per person. Sending emails can be scary, but it does not have to be hard, if that makes sense. I think a lot of folks who are neurodivergent struggle with like the social, like, what do I say? What's the right thing to say? Keep it short and sweet, right? Also, this is not specifically related to emails, but it is something I have experienced. Don't pressure people to follow you back on social media. That's weird and uncomfortable. I've been approached by people, not at this convention, but I was at another convention where I gave a panel one day, and then the next day, someone who I guess was at the panel the other day and had come up to talk to me at the end of the panel, approached me after a second panel I was on and was like, "Hey, why haven't you followed me back yet?" And I'm like, whoa, that's a very forward question to be asking. And like, I didn't even know who this person was. Like, that's the other thing, is like, I didn't even remember them. So don't pressure people to follow you back on social media. That is incredibly uncomfortable. Yes, they were white. Just don't do that. People will follow you back if they do. I think social media is very weird. And I understand the awkwardness behind those kinds of interactions. But it's just uncomfortable. So I wouldn't like pressure that. Because I think there's plenty of people that don't follow me back on social media that I've worked with / am working with, and it's whatever, right?
Just real
Oh.
quick for our listeners, I did ask if the person was white through emojis, so it was not knowledge just throwing that out there. That was me asking. Okay.
All right.
Yes, they were white. The
On that
audacity.
note, on the note of white audacity. Um, so I do want to finish out the conversation. One thing that I've forgotten to mention, but I do want to say, I've volunteered for Big Bad Con as one of their rangers. I think it's a really great thing to do and a very different perspective that you get on a con. The rangers at Big Bad are absolutely fucking amazing. Like, I've just really loved meeting everybody that I've met through rangering, because you don't get, it's completely volunteer and people are just doing it for the love of the con. And some folks there are definitely like in the game design. Everybody loves TTRPGs at the very least. So I would heartily encourage, especially if folks are kind of new to things and want a more like systemized way to meet people. Like, I think that's a great option.
The
Okay.
con runs on its volunteers. Yeah.
Yes, and they are great. They are really great people. ET, who manages Games on Demand stuff, fed me a bagel, which kept me standing upright on it was either Friday or Saturday. Anyways, great people.
Volunteer for the
Cool.
con, you may or may not get a free bagel.
I think you will get, there is a snack room. Okay, I'm seeing that Friday just messaged me, which probably means that she needs to go very soon. So we're gonna wrap this up. So I guess the last thing that I just wanted to give people a space to do is talk about the favorite thing. Let me say this again. I want to give people a space to talk about the thing that made them the most happy during Big Bad Con, whether that is an event that we didn't get to talk about, or a person, a creator, or a game that you're specifically excited about. Yeah, I just wanted to give people space to do that.
I have rapid fire three things I can say super quickly. One, Lamar ran karaoke. We kind of like guerrilla style took over a random room, and it was like past midnight, and we did karaoke. It was very fun. I also got to play test a game called The Prince of Nothing Good. It was by CJ Linton, who is at Near Futures on social media. This game is beautiful. It is really freaking cool, and we never even got to finish the playtest, but we are going to meet online to finish it up. That, like, The Prince of Nothing Good, this game is amazing. It was also the only game I got to play like all conventions, so that was another thing. And then last thing, I got to meet Tim Hutchings, who is the game designer of 1,000-Year-Old Vampire, among other things. And that was just almost like a starstruck moment for me, which I don't feel very often. Because this is a whole nother thing. People are people. I don't idolize people. Like, that's not a thing I do. However, the layout for 1,000-Year-Old Vampire is so cool and is a huge inspiration for my own graphic design and my own layout work. And getting to see him in person and watching him sign books, like, he doesn't sign books like a normal fucking human being. He signs books real weird, and I love that for him. And just like standing there listening to him talk, it was really cool. And I got to show him some of my work, and he was super enthused by it. And I just told him like how much he has inspired me with my own stuff. And I also got to hear a little sneak peek about what he's working on next, and that's super exciting. And y'all aren't ready. But yeah, those are my three, I think, like little moments that really stood out to me this convention.
Big things that stood out to me. One of the biggest things, honestly, was my 30-minute conversation with Anthony. I really enjoyed that conversation. It was really nice to connect with him. Someone that I really wanted to connect with personally, because of just kind of like their social presence and our similar backgrounds, which was really important to me. And I think that's one of the really huge strengths of Big Bad Con, is finding people that you initially interact with online in a professional, semi-professional capacity, whose work you like, and really just connecting with them in a way that is meaningful. And then, maybe opens the doors for new possibilities, but that's not the expectation, right? Because, you aren't necessarily in someone's like correct time slot for them accepting new people for work or projects. I would also say connecting with my friends that I have met over the time that I have been in this space, like people I've worked with for 3 years. I saw them for the first time. and we had nice hugs and like cried a little bit and stuff like that. So that was really wonderful. And then I really personally had a great time connecting with people that I might be working with in the future for Vineyard on my own projects and so forth. And I really enjoyed meeting so many different highly qualified, talented people that I wish I could work with all of them. So it's going to be difficult, like selecting the people that I can work with next year. But yeah, it was huge. It was great, and I loved it. I got so emotionally overwhelmed on Saturday night after the events that I just like cried in my bed. I was just like, I'm so happy. This is exactly what I wanted. And yeah.
I do just want to give a shout out to Banana Chan and Aaron Catano Sayers, who both years. So last year it was a D&D poetry reading, but actually it was Secret Gambling Club, which actually was just us all playing bingo. And they gave out badges at the end that said I went to a D&D poetry reading. And then this year they ran a fashion show. There was a ramp and a catwalk that Nala was also a part of. And everyone got a golden crown if you went on the stage and like did your little turn. And the point is that they, on the very first night of the con, on the Thursday night after the opening ceremonies, they do just a little silly, feel-good event to kind of get everybody relaxed and get everybody in like a jovial mood. And for me, like that makes the con. The second I saw that this year that they were doing another event, I was like focused on, I have to be at this event. I want to be at this event. I know it's going to be so much fun. And it is a phenomenal experience because they are so joyous when they are presenting, and that really is like an infectious joy that you carry with you into the next day, which you really need when you're going into like something as intense as a like 3-day con. The other thing, sorry, you go.
Oh, no. Okay, that fashion show, people were really nervous about it because they thought it was like a real fashion show. And so I played the stage manager. I played one of the stage managers. And I was telling people before the event, I was like, guys, it's not like, yes, it's a fashion show, but it's not like a quote unquote real fashion show. It's more like a LARP. Anyone can walk. The judges are going to give you 10s every time. It's supposed to be an event that's supposed to uplift everyone and make everyone feel really good about themselves. Like and like I felt the love in that room that night. And y'all should definitely, if you're planning on coming next year, making whatever Banana's going to do next a priority to go to, because it's just a community building event. And this year I got to participate and have a little as playing the stage manager, and I had this idea of having like a big reveal, and my demisexual ass accidentally did a striptease, and I didn't realize it was a striptease until someone made a joke about it being a striptease after, and I was like, oh damn, I really did do a striptease, didn't I? And I didn't realize it. But yeah, definitely go. It's so good.
100%. You looked amazing, by the way, but you looked amazing all weekend long.
Thank you.
I will keep saying it because you're one of my fashion icons. I actually stepped up my fashion game this year at Big Bad Con because of Nala and because of Sebastian Yu. Like the pair of them. Yes! Like, okay, I can never, like, I want to look like you look on a bad day where you're putting in low effort. Like, that's the goal. That's the goal. But no. wrapping this up. The other thing that made the con for me was the POC dinner. I am a mixed race woman living in England, and I have never been in a room full of just like people of color ever in my life until I attended the POC dinner in 2022. And when I say that was like a life-changing experience, it was for me because it's something that I had never gotten to kind of experience before. And not only were they all people of color, they shared my interests. I sat down with people at a table that I wasn't very familiar with. I turned to the person next to me who I'd spoken to a couple of times, made them my con buddy, and now, like, this isn't going to be for everyone, but, like, me and Ethan speak most days. And when I, like, as somebody who has felt really alone for a lot of her life, have, like, making this space, allowing us to just be ourselves in this space. I wore a dress that I bought for my honeymoon and then I never got to wear, and I hadn't gotten to wear it for like 3 years, and I got to wear it to the POC dinner. And it just made me feel so good about myself. The people there crying with passion as they talk about being POC in the TTRPG industry, their words are not mine to share with you today, but like the way that I was moved and impassioned and ready to go to war with the people who were with me, because it was an electrifying experience and something that you just can't communicate with words necessarily, which is really bad because I'm a writer by trade. Like I should be able to like say these things. But at the end of the day, the thing that makes Big Bad Con so important, that makes it so important to me as a person, is community. At every single point, everything that we've discussed today, as ultimately it can be boiled down to community. Having people to talk to who do the thing that you do, who are like you in so many different ways, no matter your marginalization, is a truly incredible experience for people who have never had community before. And for people who do have community, being able to share your community and welcome in other people is a wonderful, wonderful thing. So I really do just want to thank Sean Nittner, who is the creator and the steward of Big Bad Con currently. I want to thank Arjit George and everyone on the POC leadership team for making it possible for this little mixed British girl to travel halfway across the world and hug her colleagues in person, which is something I would never be able to do on my own.
Oh, man. Well, that's a really good close out of the conversation. Although I didn't say my thing. I mean, like, I definitely plus one all of that. And I think part of that is to figure out, I think Big Bad Con does do something like quite special. And it's not that vibe at other conventions. And that is a very sort of strategic effort by the folks in charge to create a space for POCs. And I hope that all of the love that comes for Big Bad Con after the con encourages other conventions and other spaces to create some of the same cultural things that we see at Big Bad Con. Actually putting your money where your mouth is and getting POCs out to spaces so that they can connect with industry professionals. Is just extremely empowering, and I think actually does make meaningful change in the industry. I was really stressed out at Big Bad Con. I guess I will say partially because of a lot of the networking things. So a lot of the experiences that I had that were very good were kind of like one-on-one interactions with folks. I'll also shout out Lamar as somebody who had extreme excitement for Jukebox, and there was also a couple other creators and people that I met that were just really excited about Jukebox, which is my little karaoke TTRPG that I've been working on the DL for like years, and just being able to hand out my Jukebox stuff and getting like positive reinforcement was really nice, and Lamar like chased me down, so that was great. I'm gonna go ahead and also shout out Pam and Sebastian, who last year gave me the time of day when I was basically a nobody in the space. They both, Pam specifically came up to me and said, "I'm so glad that you're here." In when I was like in a weird conversation where everybody was doing the trading card game and I didn't know any of them and I wasn't even really sure if I should be in the circle. Like she just proactively said that. And Sebastian as well, like gave me a 2-minute rundown of their path into TTRPGs, and I am just forever grateful for that energy in the space and want to encourage other people to do that, and also hope to be that person myself. Cool. This has been a lovely conversation with the group of you. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this 1 week out from Big Bad Con recap. I hope for all the listeners that you've either taken away something from the panels that is helpful that we went over, or if you're somebody who's new to the industry and looking to get in, that some of the advice that myself and all these fine folks dropped was useful for you. I know that I will be blogging about actionable stuff from Big Bad Con, I think hopefully with Taylor, who's giving me a little wave right now. And is there anything anybody else wants to say about last words about Big Bad or stuff they're doing coming out from Big Bad?
I will say all of these fine people's links and such will be in the description of this podcast. If you would like to, and you should, follow these individuals for all of their wonderful projects. And if you are interested in working with them because of how incredibly intelligent and articulate all of them are.
Awesome. And with that display of uplifting your peers, I think we will end this conversation. Thank you and good night.
Hi, thanks for listening. If you want to support me, you can find me on Patreon at patreon.com/isfriday, or you can find some of the work that I'm doing at vineyardrpg.com if you want to pre-order the book that we made. Thanks.